Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another O-Gauge Steam Loco review. Today's Loco is quite a new one then. I'm not sure if it was released this year or last year, I absolutely can't remember now, but it is quite recent. It's also a Dapol Loco, and in my experience at least, Dapol's O-Gauge Locos have so far had a 100% positive track record, which is really good, so I've got high hopes for this. The Loco then is this. It is Dapol's O-Gauge Sentinel steam locomotive. It's an 040 locomotive, doesn't much look like a steam loco, in fact it hardly looks like a locomotive at all, but that's what it is. I paid £148.75 for mine from Hatton's, which actually for an O-Gauge locomotive of any kind seems like a phenomenal price. And actually it's within £5 of the RRP of Bachmann's newly announced EFE J94 steam locomotive, which is, get this, double O-Gauge. So we now have some O-Gauge locomotives which are close to the price, or basically the same price, as some double O-Gauge locomotives. That is absolutely crazy. So what is this going to be like? We will find out today. If you want to check out the range of Dapol's Sentinels for yourself, I will include an affiliate link down in the description. There's quite a variety of different versions and different liveries of these, all of which make interesting viewing, so do check those out. For now though, I'm going to get this out, we'll get it out together, and let's find out what it's like. Here we go. So this actually won't be the first time that I've looked at one of Dapol's 040 Sentinels. They did a double O-Gauge one, which was exclusive to Model Rail, I believe. If you want to see the review, check it out up there. To be honest, I wasn't that pleased with mine. It was quite expensive for such a tiny loco. The level of detail wasn't that impressive, and the noise it made when it was running was known to attract/upset dogs and other animals, which wasn't very impressive. Oh my word. Looking at this box though, just from the line drawing alone, having not yet seen the model, I can tell already that the level of detail on this is considerably upgraded from their 00 version, which is great news. Let me show you the end of the box then. So the version I went for is 7S-005-007. It's a Sentinel Y1/Y3, and the version I went for is in the NCB blue. Mine's number 14 and moored. Not the first moored loco I've reviewed either, although obviously the other one I did was considerably different to this one. Right, well that is basically all the outside of the box has to offer, so I can see no reason to delay any further. Let's lift the lid and see what this is like. I wonder if I'm going to have to sort of dismantle some scaffolding to get this loco out. We shall see. Anyway, look at this. So we've got an owner's manual. This is very nicely produced, very cool looking. Look at this. Right, so we've got a big table of contents. Let's just have a flick through. I will have to read this properly before I try the thing. All right, what have we got here then? So fitting a DCC decoder, that's fairly standard stuff, isn't it? In fact, this seems to be covering most of the bases. There we go. Look at this. That actually gives you a nice view of what's inside. The double O-Gauge version had no interior detail whatsoever, and it's clear that this one does, so that's good. Quick look elsewhere then. Oh, look at that. Look at that big chunky motor. That's pretty decent. Wow, it does show you quite a lot of the parts. In fact, we've got parts spread over several pages, and there we have a table with all the different parts inside. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'll read that again properly, just in case there's anything I need to know before I try the thing. But let's have a look what the packaging's like then. Lots of thick foam, which is good. All right, well, it doesn't have the scaffolding, which is screwed together. It also doesn't have the blister pack, so I'm a bit worried about getting this out and not damaging it. But there it is, look at that. And the NCB blue is such a cool livery, isn't it, don't you think? Wow, and again, this thing is pretty huge. I mean, my experience of the 040 Sentinels is very different up until this point. I think the 00 ones are like probably this big or something like that. Yeah, this looks pretty hefty from what I already know of the Sentinels. Right, well, I mean, we've got this plasticky stuff, so maybe that's the way to go getting this out. Oh no, okay, so the whole lot is coming out. Is there any way to push this out from behind? No, there isn't. So it's got to be pulled out. I tell you what, the worst part of these Dapol locos is getting them out. It's, except for the Terrier, always been a bit of a chore, hasn't it? All right, okay, it's not too bad. Don't really like having to yank it out with the plastic wrap, but good Lord, this is heavy. I think because of how small the loco is, the box itself didn't feel particularly heavy, but the model really is. wow, that weighs a lot. And once again, and this always seems to be the case really with the Dapol O-gauge stuff, we have a lot of chunky die cast on this. The underframe seems to be largely made of metal, which is superb. And yeah, I was right. From what I said, just looking at the box, the level of detail here is clearly a lot better than the double O-gauge version, and I'm glad about that too. In fact, given that this is literally 8 times the size, I think the increase in price is very, very reasonable. I mean, I think the 001 was £80 or £90, and here we are with a massive version for, you know, not much more, 50 odd, 60 odd quid more. Incredible. Wow, that looks wonderful. So, if you can bear it, I will tear you away from this model for just a second while I give you some history on the real things. And after that, we will have a little bit of a close look at this and some of the exquisite details. And you can tell they're exquisite already. All right, let's do it. So the Sentinel steam shunters were built by the Sentinel Wagon Works, which were a multifaceted company who produced lorries, diesel locomotives, buses and steam shunters, of course. They did quite a lot of stuff. The Sentinel steam locomotives used the same boilers that their lorries used. Yes, their lorries were also steam-powered, or some of them were, and they produced quite a variety of them over many years. The L&ER had quite a lot of them built in the form of the class Y3 and the Y1, like this one, which were introduced in the mid-1920s. So, I mean, in a livery like this, they look reasonably modern, but they're not really. I mean, 90s, 20s locos, which is quite interesting. The Sentinels were used in several other different applications in various industries. So there you go, that explains why you do have the wealth of different guises and liveries. At least one that resembles this type of Sentinel shunter at least has been preserved. It's one of the L&ER Y1s and it resides at the Middleton Railway, so get yourselves down there if you want to see it. So there it is then, up close and personal for you, the absolutely phenomenal Dapol O-gauge 040 Sentinel. And to be honest with you, for less than 150 quid, I think the price, the quality and the detail are just exquisite. There really is no better word. In fact, I would say that this Loco blows quite a lot of other manufacturers clean out of the water, particularly when you consider that this is only a little bit more expensive than some double O-gauge tank engines, most of which are smaller and lighter and often less detailed than this. And I do emphasise the smaller and lighter because I only have 5 double O-gauge locomotives that are heavier than this. I kid you not, 5. Of all those huge tender engines, of all those massive diesels I've got, only 5 of them weigh more than this thing. This weighs in at 459 grams, which is the best part of half a kilogram. It's phenomenal, the weight. It's actually more than the Dapol O-gauge Terrier. Can you believe that? And it's mostly empty space. Look at this thing, it's all empty inside there. It just proves what 150 quid can really do. And the level of detail is such that it answers quite a few questions I had about these Sentinels after I reviewed the double O-gauge version. One of them being, how are the wheels driven? Well, on this version you can clearly see they were chain driven. You can see we've got the chain there. In fact, that chain looks so realistic that I thought to start with that the Loco would actually be driven on those chains. It isn't, those are just there for decoration, but they look that good. Another question I had, where is the boiler? There was no interior detail whatsoever on the previous version. Not the case on this one. Look at the interior there. You can actually see the boiler and all of the detail that goes with it. I mean, how likely is it that you're ever going to clap eyes on that, because it is hidden inside, and yet the astonishing level of detail there is clear to see. And it's not just the boiler, you've got this, I mean, it's difficult to even see what that is. I think that must be where the driver would be, perhaps, I'm not too sure, but look at the pipework and all the controls on the walls. We've got gauges. I mean, the interior here is astonishing. Look at this, we've got the opening doors. So if you wanted to, you can pose the doors however you want. You can have them open or closed. That is amazing. You've got the little hatch on top of the cab here, which will let some air in if the crew want it. That moves. It is quite stiff, so it's difficult to move, but it does in fact move. As I've already said, you've got a massive amount of die cast on this. You've got the very, very chunky running board, which I think is where most of the weight comes from, but it's far from the only detail that's made of metal. You've got all these lovely handrails, which are really neatly fitted, no glue marks whatsoever. You've actually got a metal whistle. I always say this, metal whistles look far, far better than plastic. And while we're up there, look at the level of detail on the chimney there. Really, really impressive. The double O-gauge version looked just like a tube sticking up. This has got all of the detail, and that's actually removable. You can take it out, which reveals the fact that it is actually connected to the boiler. It is actually literally connected to the boiler on the inside, which is really impressive. The reason that removes is so that you can remove the body. I found that out on the instructions. So let's take a look at some more of the details then. Let's talk about the decoration. Look at the wasp striping on the back. I mean, this livery is phenomenal and it's pretty complicated as well, but Dapol have risen to the challenge and met it perfectly. Wasp striping on both ends, as you can see. In fact, there's 3 areas with wasp striping because it's split up on the front / back end. The one criticism I might have is the lack of an etched nameplate. I can't find any pictures of the thing in real life that actually reveal whether or not it would have had an etched nameplate. Usually though, with most Locos, the names aren't just sort of painted onto the body. I might be wrong. I do think it would have looked better if it was etched, but okay, if it wasn't prototypical, then that is fair enough. I'm not entirely sure. The printed detail though is pretty good if you look closely at that. You've got this here. I'm not sure if that's legible or not. Let's have a close look. I don't know, we might have to wait and see if the camera can pick that up. You've got the NCB and the running number there, very, very nicely done. I mean, all of the printed detail looks fantastic. If I had to criticise again, there are some minor glue marks where some of the parts have been stuck on. They are very, very minor, and you don't have any of that horrible, ugly clouding, which sometimes occurs when glue gets smudged. It isn't smudged or anything like that, or at least not really. In a couple of areas that is noticeable. Some of the lamp brackets as well aren't 100% perfectly fitted. Some of them I did notice are a little bit on the wonk out of the box, but really, that is it. And I don't think that is very much to complain about, is it, to be honest? Right, let's try and get some of these other details ticked off then. So you've got the glazing, which is nice and flush with the outside of the body. You've got the coal, as you can see. I'm not sure if that's removable, but it is sort of low down in the bunkers so that you could cover it if you wanted to. You've got the wood panelled effect there between the 2 coal bunkers. I assume that would be where the water would be kept. The buffer beam, look at this, you've got the separately fitted vacuum pipe, which looks really nice. You've got the 3-link coupling pre-fitted to this, and it's actually a really nice, strong looking one. It doesn't look flimsy like some of Dapol's older wagons do, so that's pretty good. And look at these buffers, metal buffers, and they are properly sprung. And I say properly sprung because there's quite a lot of resistance there. As we've learned from some of my previous reviews, the spring in the buffers is actually useful, and you can actually take advantage of that in O-gauge, which is really, really good. Finally then, the underframe looks really, really great. You've got all of the sanding equipment, which is clear to see. You've got the wire ladders, which are nicely separately fitted. And as I've already mentioned, there's a lot of drive mechanism, which is actually visible under there, which is really, really incredible. I was not expecting a lot when I bought this for £150. I thought, you know, I've seen their 00 gauge version. It was okay. It's probably just going to be an upscaled version of that, and maybe there'll be a bit of cab detail. Not true. Not true at all. The level of detail is really quite astonishing, and I appreciate that I'm labouring somewhat on that point, but this really, really has impressed me. It's probably the most detailed O-gauge Loco I've got, including the 14XX. Wow, amazing. So let's move on then. I'll have a look at the mechanism, which I already know quite a lot about because the instructions were so thorough, so that's another great big tick. But I will investigate further. We'll get onto the layout and give this its first ever test. Oh, how exciting. Right, let's bung this on the track. I'm actually quite nervous because if the performance is excellent, then we're going to be giving a high score to this Loco. And I don't like giving high scores because, well, I don't like giving perfect scores because nothing can improve on it. But the mechanism is very, very strong, it must be said. So first of all, if we look at the underside and I tilt it towards you a bit, you can see we've got the proper turned metal bearings on the axles, which is absolutely great, top notch. And if you look closely, you can also see we've got the proper metal wiper pickups, which is great. Removing the body is quite easy to do. It requires just 4 screws. It shows off some of the boiler detail, which is great. And you can see here that actually, yeah, that's where most of the controls are. I was wrong about that earlier on. You can also see we've got some wires going up inside the boiler. I believe that's where the speaker lives. We actually, I think, have a pre-fitted speaker inside this Loco, which is great. And also with it being sort of inside the boiler, it's a good spot where the sound can escape and be heard quite easily, which is good. The motor doesn't look absolutely huge. I think it is a 5-pole motor and the flywheel's pretty small as well, so we'll see how that goes. But obviously space is at a bit of a premium in this Loco because although there is quite a lot of empty space inside, most of it is on view, so you couldn't just bung a motor anywhere, and I'm glad they haven't. I'm glad that the realism of the interior hasn't been compromised in any way. Anyway, enough talking about this though. Let's actually give this a go and see how this thing performs. It has not been run in yet. The instructions claim that no special running in is required. I do like to run in my Loco, so I think I probably still will. But straight out of the box, here is the performance. Let's give it a go. Are you ready? I'm nervous. I'm quite nervous. Whoa, look at that. That was a smooth start, I have to say. Let's go back. And I've just noticed one of the other amazing features as well. This has a firebox flicker, which is visible from the outside of the model, as you can see in the firebox there. 150 quid, folks, 150 quid. What an amazing model. It's performing beautifully and it's not even yet been run in. How? I guess they were right on the instructions. It doesn't seem to need running in. I'm still going to do that. Not that I've got many wagons to overload it with, but yeah. I prefer to run in my Locos. Right, go on then. I'm just going to make sure we're actually in the middle of the shot. We are pretty much. And we will try a bit of a crawl. Ready? Let's see. We are, it's crawling. Now that is a crawl. So the motor didn't look particularly beefy or chunky. I'm not sure what the pulling power itself is going to be like, but the actual slow speed performance is just phenomenal. Don't know if it stopped there, but it didn't stall because I turned it up and it worked. That is incredible, folks. Wow, what a model. Right, let's send this up. Let's send this up the weight. Let it stretch its legs a little bit. There we go. I must say it doesn't sound dreadfully healthy. There's quite a noise coming from it, but the actual performance is smooth as you like. It's funny actually, it does sound a little bit like the 00 Sentinel. Perhaps not quite as unhealthy as that though. Yeah, I mean the gearing's very, very competent. That's 50% speed and it looks about right. I'm going to stop at the end there. There we go. Sprung buffers coming into action there. Alright, let's reverse it back up. There we go. Look at that. Beautiful. That firebox effect is marvellous. And it just happens to be in a spot where you can really notice it. And it's flickering as well. It actually flickers on DC, I should say. This is not DCC fitted. How marvellous. I almost want to get a sound decoder for this now so that I can listen to what these sound like too. Absolutely phenomenal. For £150, I cannot recommend this enough. Right, let's send it over the points then. Let's see how it handles those. Shouldn't be a problem though. Right, let's see if we can get this right. Now bear in mind I have to swap controllers halfway across those points. So if the Loco stutters, it's my fault and not its. A bit further. Oh, hang on, wrong way. There we are. Perfect. And backwards? Any different backwards? I've got this off to a bit of a T now, I think. There we are. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, the performance, even now, I mean, how long have we been going? A few minutes at the most. It's getting quieter and, if possible, even smoother, which is absolutely great. Right, let's send it round the extension then, shall we? There we go. Nice and slow this time. Yeah, it looks fantastic, doesn't it? And it's actually a bit bigger than I expected it to be. I mean, literally, my 00 gauge one is tiny. I'll put it next to it later on, or maybe even in one of the wagons. But the size difference is a lot more than I expected it to be. I suppose that's just because I'm still quite a noob where O gauge is concerned. Yeah, a bit shadowy over here, so apologies that it's not that bright. It's respecting my very limited loading gauge quite well. Yeah, amazing. Here we are, just arriving at the far end of the layout there. We've got some wagons standing by for later on, but I don't really want to couple up to anything just yet. There we are. I'll bump into them for you. How about that? Right, let's bring it back then. And I'll get this running, and I'll see you in just a second, and then we'll come back and pick up these wagons, see how it gets on with those. Alright folks, well, I have to be honest, that half an hour has flown by unlike any other half an hour has before. I'm just not getting tired of this thing. I've been running it up and down, messing around with it, going over points, banging into the wagons. It's just so much fun to run. I know that's childish, but really it is an awful lot of fun. It's very, very enjoyable. Anyway, as promised, here's the 00 gauge version in comparison. The size difference there is crazy, and to think I paid only £60 more for the large version than I did for the 00 gauge version is unbelievable, and the differences are unbelievable as well. So the pulling power is really, really good. I measured 0.63 newtons, I think it was, off the top of my head, which is actually more than the 14XX was. Given how much smaller this is than the 14XX, I think that is reasonably impressive. Now then, let's verify what we already know, and that is that the slow speed is absolutely incredible. Let's try that again. Here we go. Look at that. That is really good. I think I would say, I mean, the Terrier's slow speed wasn't that great, so I think that's out of the competition for crawling. I would say that is probably better and more controlled than the 14XX was. And I'm not surprised, because the mechanism is really, really good. It's not overcomplicated, which some manufacturers do have a tendency for, don't they? It's not overcomplicated, it's just simple, high quality, and fit for purpose. And functional, look at that. Phenomenal slow speed, really, really good. Right, so I'm going to get out of the way so I can pan the camera around as we'll try it on the curve. Bear with me. Right, let's get cracking with some wagons then, shall we? Here we go. Let's get this back in focus. There it goes. Handles the curve really nicely, as you can tell. Does slow down a little bit as it goes further from the controller, but unlike my 00 layout, this layout is only powered in one spot, so that makes sense, and the fact that I'm using a feedback controller makes that a bit less noticeable, which is good. Right, let's go and marshal up those wagons, shall we? So there's quite a journey between my controller and the wagon yard, so I will cut out my trips to and from. So if you see any cuts, that's the reason. Now I'm really looking forward to Hornby's HM6000 being released, because then I'll be able to do this remotely. Anyway, I've got my dog dentistry set out. Let's see if I can get these coupled up properly. I think I might use the actual chain that's on the Sentinel to do the coupling, because that's kind of what needs to be tested today, isn't it? So let's try that. Oh, that's it, I think. Yeah. It's a very awkward place for shunting this, but yeah, that's done. Right, let's pull it forwards and hop onto the other siding and pick up the other wagons. There we go. Steadily does it. Look at that. Handling those all right. And so it should. Right, hopefully that's far enough. Alright, a train of 4. Still no brake van, unfortunately. That is a gap in my O-gauge collection still, so that's one thing I'll probably have to see if I can find one day. But for now, we're going to break the rules, because that's what rules are for. Right, coupling ahoy. That was a bit quicker. Slightly better angle on it that time. There we are. A train of 5. Looks good. Right, take it away, Maud. Let's see how this goes. Ooh, in the way again. There she goes. Take it away. There we are. I do think this one looks better if you keep it slow. There we are. Totally inappropriate wagons, more than likely, but I think they do the job. I do think I'm going to go ahead and say that this is now my favourite O-gauge Loco. It's very close. The 14XX was amazing. I do just think on quality, performance and detail alone, although that is quite a lot, I would say that this one trumps it. It's just something about it that is spot on and ultra realistic. It's very, very good. I think you guys will have to let me know what you think about that one. Is this really better than the 14XX? I think it is, but I don't know whether that's just my sort of personal opinion shining through too much. But I think this is really, really impressive. Let's take it over the point, shall we, and deliver the wagons somewhere. Right, I'm a bit concerned about getting buffer lock over these points. There we are. Nope, seems like it was fine after all. There we are. Now, I'm quite excited by this because I'm just starting to be able to put slightly larger consists together. I mean, obviously it's nothing like a large consist, is it? But it's better than just one wagon. There we are. I suppose I could put the Warwell on with it as well, and maybe even the Great Western coach. But no, I think we'll stick with wagons today. Right. Well, consider those wagons delivered. Let's uncouple them. Right. Hopefully this bit will be a bit easier than the actual coupling was. My dog dentistry set makes it very easy though. Yeah, that was good. Right, take it away then, Maudie. Here we go. Let's take her back to the yard, shall we? Drop her off there. Wow. So let's have some ratings then. I mean, it looks pretty good for Dapol at this point, doesn't it? Look at this. So level of detail, I have given it 5-star. Now maybe that is a little bit generous because we didn't have the etched nameplates, but to be honest, I don't think that's enough to knock off an entire star or even half a star. The interior detail was absolutely phenomenal. The underframe also really, really cool. We've got the sprung buffers, realistic couplings, massive amounts of detail. Where necessary, the details are made of metal and not plastic. I mean, absolutely top notch. I really don't feel too generous in giving this 5-star on detail. Performance, similarly, I think overall I'm going to give this 5-star. Yes, it is a little bit noisy, but that's not really affecting the performance in any way. The things wouldn't have been silent in real life anyway. The smoothness is top notch. The slow speed is absolutely amazing. It's perfectly smooth. It handles points exactly as it should. Same with curves. It's a really, really good performer. I'm going to give it 5-star there as well. The pulling power is also really good. I measured 0.64 newtons on the coupling there. That's quite high. That's about 9 coaches, although that is very much an estimate, I should say. I don't have the means to test that. That is actually more than the 14XX was though, which is what, 2 to 3 times the size, at least double the size. Very, very powerful for its size, which is fantastic. The mechanism then, that's an easy one. Again, 5-star. You've got the 5-pole motor, you've got the flywheel, proper metal bearings, pickups on all wheels. That's all the boxes ticked. I really can't see what else this could do. I mean, I guess the die-cast metal chassis is another thing. Absolutely fantastic, and thrown into the mix you've got the DCC operated flicker, which also works on DC, and you've got a speaker thrown in there as well, I believe, which is absolutely wonderful. The quality then, I've given just 4-star. I mean, the build quality is really, really good. Nothing's dropped off mine. A few of the lamp brackets weren't 100% straight, and I did notice a couple of glue marks. Also, to make that 1-star deduction reasonable, I'm also knocking off a point for the lack of etched nameplates, because seeing a proper metal nameplate there would actually have been a really top quality touch. But overall, the build quality is very, very good. No complaints really. Value for money then. Now the RRP is £175, and I'm being honest with you here, for the level of detail on this Loco and the way it performs and the decoration and all the other fine points that this Loco has on offer, even that is a good price in my opinion. However, most of the retailers are quite reliably selling these for less than £150, which I think is just phenomenal. When you think in double O gauge what £150 gets you, this is really, really impressive, in my opinion anyway. So let me know if you disagree. I have given that 5 stars though, where the value for money is concerned. Overall then, that is a phenomenally high score for a phenomenally high performing Loco. 9.44 out of 10, wow. Into the logbook we go, and unsurprisingly it is actually top there, just above the Dapol O-Gauge Terrier. Yeah, it's really, really wonderful. I'm struggling to fault it. The quality is great, the performance is wonderful, the decoration is top notch, the level of detail is superb, a lot of it is made of metal, it weighs an incredible amount. I find a fault if there's a fault to be found. Struggling to find one here. Really, really good. Well, let's see if we can get it passing behind the wagon, shall we? I quite like that. For some reason. Oh, you can't see much of it actually. Perhaps a bit low down, aren't I? Right, let's send it back to the sidings, or the yard. Is it not really appropriate to call it a yard? It is just 2 sidings, isn't it? But maybe we could get away calling that a yard. I love this thing, man. Highly, highly recommend it. And like I say, affiliate links below if you want to get one. I'm glad I did. Man. Makes me want to try even more of Dapol's stuff. I think they do a break band, so maybe that would be something to try next. Maybe. There. Home at last. Fantastic. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that half as much as I did, because that one really was a lot of fun. And it's such a good model as well. Thoroughly happy with that one. I can see, well, I can definitely see myself having many happy hours running this thing. And I can't wait for them, to be honest. Really, really can't. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. See you very soon with another review, and you look after yourselves. All right, cheers, folks. Take care.